Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi, and this is Let's Build, wherein I build a Lego set timed to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the Lego Technic Dom's Dodge Charger versus Grand Theft Auto 5. I will not be playing any of the audio for copyright reasons. I am also going to be not going to be playing the main story for obvious reasons. This is the original vanilla GTA 5 that I've already played through on the PS3. The footage I'm using from this game is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. There will be spoilers for the Fast and the Furious films and franchise and GTA 5. You have been warned. Specifications for the Lego set. Give fans of the Fast and Furious the ultimate thrill with this Lego Technic Dom's Dodge Charger building set for kids and adults. Based on the iconic 1970s Dodge Charger RT, it's packed with authentic details. The opening hood reveals a model version of the iconic V8 engine. The other cool features include moving pistons, wishbone suspension, steering system, and air blower. There are even nitro bottles in the trunk to bring Dom's daring high-speed chases to life. Just like the real thing. Fans aged 10 and up will love building their very own replica model of Dominic Toretto's famous car. After building the Dodge Charger, the fun ramps up as fans role-play classic scenes from the Fast and the Furious movie, bringing the adrenaline-fueled world of street racing to life. Awesome building toy for creative play, the LEGO Technic universe offers advanced building toys for LEGO fans who are ready for their next building challenge. Inspire kids to recreate their favorite scenes from the Fast and Furious movies with this amazing LEGO Technic Dom's Dodge Charger, an awesome replica model with the classic muscle car. With 1,077 pieces, this cool building set provides a fun challenge for kids who love toy model cars. Inspired by the original 1970s Dodge Charger RT, this faithful replica is packed with realistic details. Authentic features let kids recreate the thrill of driving the real car, with moving pistons, suspension, steering system, and air blower. After playing, kids can show off the model in famous wheel stand position. Looking for a cool holiday gift for kids aged 10 and up? This is a great choice. Kids can build the model version of Dom's car, then explore its cool features as they recreate Fast and Furious movie scenes. Measuring 15 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 4 inches high, this model car is just the right size for role-playing high-speed adventures. Leave it in the wheel stand position for an eye-catching display piece. No batteries required for this fun race car toy. Great news for kids who love creative play. Printed instructions are included, so it's easy for young builders to get started. Now, the building instruction manual did not have any additional information, so it goes right into the build. So we're going to be moving on to our car. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT is a major car driven by Dominic Toretto in the Fast and the Furious film franchise. The Fast and the Furious is a 2001 action film directed by Rob Cohen and written by Gary Scott Thompson, Erik Bergquist, and David Ayer, based on the Vibe magazine article Racer X by Ken Lee. The first installment of the Fast and Furious franchise. It stars Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, Rick Yune, Chad Lindberg, Johnny Strong, and Ted Levine. In the film, undercover cop Brian O'Connor infiltrates a street racing crew to investigate a series of hijackings and finds himself developing a complex friendship with the group's leader, Dominic Toretto. The Fast and the Furious entered development in late 1998, its concept inspired by Lee's Vibe article about illegal street racing. Thompson and Bergquist wrote the original screenplay that year, with Ayer hired soon after. Various actors were considered for the roles of O'Connor and Toretto, with Walker cast in 1998 and Vin Diesel in early 1999, with the pair attending actual street races in preparation for the film. Principal photography began in July 2000 and finished that October, with filming locations primarily including Los Angeles and the surrounding area in Southern California. Record producer BT was hired to compose the score. The Fast and the Furious premiered at the Mann Village Theater in Los Angeles on June 18, 2001, and was released in the United States on June 22 by Universal Pictures. Critics praised the action sequences and the performances, but criticized its story. The film is considered Diesel's, Walker's, and Rodriguez's breakthrough roles. The Fast and the Furious grossed $207 million worldwide on a $38 million budget. The film's success was followed by the sequel Too Fast, Too Furious in 2003 and spawned a franchise of 8 films, TV series, and several video games. I think we're at 10 films now. Plot: outside Los Angeles, a heist crew driving 3 heavily modified Honda Civics hijack a semi-truck trailer carrying electronic goods and escape into the night along the Terminal Island Freeway. Meanwhile, LAPD officer Brian O'Connor is sent undercover as a part of a joint LAPD-FBI task force to locate the crew responsible. Brian investigates Toretto's marketing cafe, managed by Mia, the sister of notorious street racer Dominic "Dom" Toretto. When Dom's crew arrives, Vince, Leon, Jesse, and Dom's girlfriend Letty, Vince becomes suspicious of Brian and picks a fight with him. As a result of the fight, Dom threatens to fire Brian from his undercover job at Harry's garage and ban him from the market, but Harry manages to reason with him and keep Brian employed. Brian brings a modified 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse RS to a car meet, hoping to find a lead on the heist crew. Dom arrives in his Mazda RX-7 and initiates a race. Without credibility, Brian wagers his car. He, Dom, and 2 other drivers race. Brian's car malfunctions and Dom wins the race, but LAPD officers arrive, forcing Dom to flee. Brian rescues him, helping him escape, inadvertently venturing into territory held by a rival racing gang led by Johnny Tran and his cousin Lance. Tran and Lance destroy the Eclipse, and the 2 are forced to run to Dom's home on foot. Dom reiterates that Brian still owes him a 10-second car. Brian delivers a decrepit MK4 Toyota Supra to Dom's garage, and the crew begins the process of restoring it. At the same time, he begins dating Mia and looks into Tran's finances. Hector comes to Harry's garage and speaks to Brian about the intent to buy performance parts for the Honda Civics. While Brian is investigating one of Hector's garages, looking for the Civics that have been involved in the heists, Brian is discovered by Dom and Vince, and he convinces the latter that he is researching trans gang vehicles in preparation for race wars. In the process, the 3 discover a large number of electronic goods, which Brian reports to his superiors, LAPD Sergeant Tanner, and FBI Special Agent Bilkins. Tran is arrested, but is found to have acquired the goods legally. An enraged Bilkins berates Tanner and Brian. Bilkins then informs Brian that the truck drivers have begun arming themselves to kill hijackers and notifies him that he has 36 hours to find them, whom the former believes was Dom all along. Brian and Dom attend race wars where Jesse wagers and loses his father's Mk3 Volkswagen Jetta in a drag race against Tran driving his Honda S2000. Jesse flees upon losing, resulting in a confrontation between Dom and Tran. Tran accuses Dom of being a narc, and the two fight before being broken up. That evening, Brian witnesses Dom leaving with his crew to carry out the heist. Brian reveals his identity to a distraught Mia, convincing her to help him knowing their danger. Dom, Letty, Vince, and Leon attempt to hijack the truck. The driver fires on Lintz, critically injuring him and running Letty off the road in the process. Brian and Mia catch up to help, but Brian is forced to reveal his identity when he calls for medevac to save Vince. Dom, Letty, Mia, and Leon flee the scene before the police arrive. Later, Brian arrives to arrest Dom, but the latter demands that he leave in order to save Jesse from the danger he's in from Tran's gang. Jesse arrives, pleading for help, but he is gunned down by Tran and Lance on motorcycles. Brian foregoes his arrest of Dom and gives chase to Tran and Lance, with Dom getting into his father's 1970 Dodge Charger RT to pursue Tran and avenge Jesse. During the chase, Dom runs Lance off the road before Brian accidentally kills Tran. Brian then pursues Dom, and the two agree to a quarter-mile race over a railroad crossing. The race narrowly ends in a draw, but Dom is T-boned by a passing truck. Instead of arresting him, Brian hands over the keys to the Supra, reminding Dom that he was owed a 10-second car. He walks away as Dom drives off. In the post-credits scene, Dom is seen driving through Baja California, Mexico, in a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Development. In 2000, actor Paul Walker had worked with director Rob Cohen on The Skulls. Cohen secured a deal with producer Neil H. Moritz for an untitled action film for Universal Pictures, and approached Walker and asked him to suggest his dream action film. Walker suggested a mashup of the films Days of Thunder and Donnie Brasco. Soon thereafter, Cohen and Moritz brought him the Vibe magazine article Racer X by Ken Lee, published in May of 1998, which detailed underground street racing operating in New York City, and suggested a story set to follow Walker as an undercover cop tasked with infiltrating the world of underground street racing. The screenplay was originally developed by Gary Scott Thompson and Erik Bergquist. David Ayer was brought into the project to help rework the script. Ayer changed it from the mostly white and suburban story set in New York to a diverse one set in Los Angeles. Upon being offered the role, Walker signed on immediately. Eminem was offered the role but turned it down to work on the film 8 Mile. And Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale were also considered. Originally, the studio told the producers that they would greenlight the film if they could get Timothy Olyphant to play the role of Dominic Toretto. Olyphant, however, who had starred in the previous year's car-themed film Gone in 60 Seconds, declined the role. Olyphant said that he turned down the role as he thought the film would be stupid. Moritz instead suggested Vin Diesel, who had to be convinced to take the role even though he had only played supporting roles up to that point. The role of Mia Toretto was originally written for Eliza Dushku, who declined it, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jessica Biel, Kirsten Dunst, and Natalie Portman auditioned before Jordana Brewster was cast. Moritz had difficulty choosing between the titles for Racer X, after the article, Redline, Race Wars, and Street Wars, but was ultimately inspired by a documentary on American International Pictures, which included the 1954 film The Fast and the Furious. Moritz was traded to use some of the stock footage to its director, Roger Corman, in exchange for a license to use the title. Filming. The film was shot in various locations within Los Angeles and parts of Southern California from July to October of 2000. Key locations included Dodger Stadium, the opening scene where Brian tests his Eclipse in the parking lot, Angelino Heights, Silver Lake, and Echo Park, the neighborhoods that surrounded Toretto House, as well as Little Saigon and the San Bernardino International Airport, the venue for Race Wars, which attracted over 1,500 import car owners and enthusiasts. The entire last rig heist scene was filmed along the Domenicali Parkway on the southern side of San Jacinto Helmets in the San Jacinto Valley near Diamond Valley Lake. Before filming, both Jordana Brewster and Michelle Rodriguez did not have driver's licenses, so they took driver's lessons during production. For the climactic race scene between Brian and Dom, separate shots of both cars crossing the railroad and the train crossing the street were filmed, then composited together to give the illusion of the train narrowly missing the cars. A long steel rod was used to ramp up for Dom's car to crash to the semi-truck and fly midair. During filming, 78 cars were wrecked both on and off screen, of which 3 cars were shown being destroyed in the film's trailer alone. During production, stunt coordinator and second unit director Mick Rogers developed a vehicle named the Mick Rig in collaboration with special effects coordinator Matt Sweeney and the rest of the film's special effects department. History of the Charger. The Fast and the Furious. The 1970s Dodge Charger RT was kept inside the garage of the Toretto house, was built by Dominic and his father in his youth. When his father was killed in a stock race accident by Kenny Linder, Dominic refused to drive the Charger because he was afraid of it. When Brian O'Connor came integrated into the crew and even began dating Dominic's sister, Mia Toretto, Dominic led him into the garage and showed him the Charger. The car is famed for its incredible power at 900 horsepower and holding a record 1/4 mile time at just 9 seconds flat, set by Dom's father at the Los Angeles County Raceway. When Johnny Tran and Lance Nguyen do a drive-by and kill Jesse, a pursuit starts with Brian and Dom chasing after him, Brian driving the Toyota Supra and Dom driving the only car left, the Charger. Dom uses it to knock Lance off his bike and down a hill. When Johnny is killed by Brian, he and Dom meet up at a red light, ready to race. As the light turns green, Dom performs a wheelie, which shows the raw power of the RT. Brian must use his nitrous oxide to simply keep up with the Charger. They approach an oncoming train, but both drive through the barrier and narrowly miss hitting the train. After landing, he and Brian are seen smiling as the race is over, but Dom hits the end of a semi-truck. This sends him and the Charger airborne, and then rolling over numerous times. Although Dom survives with minor injuries, the Charger is rendered inoperable, at which point Brian hands over the Supra to Dom, leaving the Charger on the road. Fast and Furious. Prior to finding him in the Dominican Republic, Dominic's then-girlfriend Letty Oritz refused to let the Los Angeles police dispose of the car. Instead, she began working on the Dodge Charger herself. She left the Charger incomplete at some point and traveled to Baja, Mexico, where eventually she was led to the Dominican Republic and Dominic. Following her return to the United States when Dominic left for Panama, Letty presumably started working on the Dodge Charger until she was recruited by Brian O'Connor to go undercover to discover the identity of Arturo Braga, and was presumably later killed by Phoenix Calderon. When Dominic returned to Los Angeles, Mia explained that Letty had been working on the partially restored Charger before her death. After mourning over her death, Dominic finishes rebuilding the car in Letty's stead. When they go to capture Arturo Braga, Dom drives the Charger to Mexico. He uses it to drive behind Brian's Subaru Impreza WRX STI, and they both head toward the tunnel that leads to the U.S. At one point, Dominic is headed down one of the tunnels with explosives at the end, unable to leave the tunnel as a Chevrolet Camaro RS Z28 F-bomb is blocking him. Dominic jumps out of the Charger and into the Camaro, leaving the Charger to drive itself headfirst into the explosives. Toward the end of the film, the Charger is revealed again in mint condition with Brian behind the wheel as he, Mia, Tego Leo, and Rico Santos proceed to rescue Dominic off a bus en route to Lompoc Prison. Fast 5. Brian drives the Charger in front of a prison bus with Dom on board and slams the brakes. The bus crashes into the rear of the Charger, causing it to flip violently across the road. Following Dominic's escape from the bus, Dominic commandeers the Charger and drives to Rio de Janeiro. Luke Hobbs of the Diplomatic Security Service, after looking at security and traffic cameras, spots the Charger with faces covered. Facial recognition software manages to identify the driver as Dom and the passenger as fellow crew member Han Sol-oh. Hobbs realizes that Dominic and Brian's associates are now in Rio as well. The Charger is seen again on the Rio racing scene and was used to win an off-screen pink slip race for a Porsche 996 GT3 RS. The Charger is seen one final time in the movie when it is rammed into by Hobbs's armored car. Fast and Furious 6. Dominic's nephew, Jack, plays with a scale model of the Dodge Charger. The scale model is an exact replica of the original Charger RT that Dominic drove in Los Angeles. Furious 7. Off-road Dodge Charger RT. When Dominic and the others agree to help Mr. Nobody rescue a hacker named Ramsey from the terrorist named Mose Jakande, a 1970 Dodge Charger RT is given to him by Mr. Nobody, who allows Dominic to use any of the cars and any equipment in the garage. Tej Parker uses parts from a military Jeep to add more weight and power to the Charger. Dom then uses the Charger to reverse out of a hangar of a plane, falling multiple feet before deploying his parachute. Then it is used to pull the back of a bus off using a roof-mounted grappling hook launcher. After rescuing her, he is rammed a few times by Deckard Shaw, who showed up to wipe Dominic out, but Roman Pierce manages to come in as reinforcement. Dom is then surrounded by a group of terrorists as he attempts to escape with Ramsey and decides to drive down a steep cliff, causing the car to roll over multiple times. Although Dom and Ramsey survive, the car ends up being completely destroyed. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT original. When the crew returns to Los Angeles, Dominic uses his Charger to face off against Deckard Shaw. In another game of chicken, the two clash and crash their cars. The Charger crushes the front end of Shaw's car. He later used the Charger to escape the public parking garage where he and Shaw were fighting. He drove the Charger off of the parking garage in an attempt to throw a bag of grenades into Moses' helicopter, and succeeds. The Charger crashed below and was destroyed as a result. F9. The car is first seen parked in Dom and Letty's garage on their farmland in Thailand. It is later seen where Dom is sitting on the hood of the Charger replaying Mr. Nobody's SOS message, where Dom discovers that Jacob was responsible for his plane crash. The Charger isn't seen again until the end of the movie, where it is parked in the garage at 1327, and little Brian is playing with a model of the Charger with Letty, who has a toy rocket ship. Fast X. Dom gives Brian Marcos a driving lesson at Dodger Stadium and teaches him how to drift. They then drive home in the Charger for the latest family barbecue, and Dom presumably leaves the Charger parked at 1327 when he goes to Rome to stop Dante Reyes. Specifications. For the Fast and the Furious. The Dodge Charger RT used in the Fast and the Furious featured a false BDS 871 Roots-style supercharger with chrome-plated plastic attached to the hood. Butterflies traditionally do not react or open when the engine of a Dodge Charger RT is revved. The RT purported to have 900 horsepower and a rear-wheel drive. The original RT used a hydraulic ram for the burnout wheelie scene. However, the Hemi that appears during the garage reveal sequence, the supercharged Chrysler 426 Hemi V8, was not used for the action sequences. Instead, a 383 Ci from Mopar was used in its stead. Additionally, the RT is thought to have been a 1968 Dodge Charger disguised with 1970s parts, such as the nose and mixed trim. Modifications to the RT included its use of nitrous oxide, Catherine wheels, and a stainless steel mesh grille and full roll cage. The RT uses rear-wheel drive and Continental Sport contact tires that are 18 by 8 inches in the front and 18 by 8.5 inches in the rear. Fast and Furious 5. For Fast and Furious, and subsequently the Fast 5, Dennis McCarthy and his production team Vehicle Effects worked to construct a 1970 Dodge Charger RT that differed from the original from The Fast and the Furious. 6 Dodge Chargers were built to perform all of the stunts in the film. However, because of the frequency of Dodge Chargers used in action films, the rarity of second-generation Dodge Chargers made them difficult to procure in mint condition. McCarthy and his production team purchased Dodge Chargers in terrible condition and worked to have them ready for the film. Of the 6 Dodge Chargers used in the film, one of them was constructed with a blown 528 cubic inch Hemi V8. 3 others used LS3 GM crate engines for simplification. Another Charger was merely created for up-close shots with the actors on stage and green screen effect shots for post-production work. Visible changes to the Dodge Charger's appearance from the first film include the lower supercharger. Instead of sitting on top of the hood of the car, the supercharger sits in a hole in the hood, and more contemporary, larger diameter wheels and tires were added. While one Charger was blown up and another crashed, 4 have survived and are stored. Furious 7. The off-road Dodge Charger RT was designed with off-road capabilities and handle rough terrain. According to Dennis McCarthy, the production team of the off-road RT, with a Pro 2 chassis with a Dodge Charger body on top. The off-road Dodge Charger was built to resemble a car from the original Mad Max films, primarily on account of difficulties finding grills and tail panels for the vehicles. 11 off-road Chargers were built during the production of Furious 7. Of the 11, subpar shells were used and were often little more than roof and pillars. Like most cars in the film, the off-road RT was powered using LS motors. However, McCarthy states that Dodge worked with them to use SRT motors as well. Some bonus facts. Roman Pierce's phone identifies Dominic by showing an image of his Charger when he rings, as his ringtone. Vin Diesel has deep respect for the car, kissing it at the Furious 7 trailer debut. When Brian repairs the Charger to save Dominic from the prison bus at the end of the 4th movie, the Charger's rear plate now reads 3DHI832, the same plate Brian had on his Skyline earlier in the movie. The Charger's blower in the first movie was fake. Dennis McCarthy and his team built a mold of the Charger to make it easier to build new Chargers in the future. The damaged Charger from the first movie was later used for the junkyard scene in the 2005 Disney movie Herbie Fully Loaded, albeit with a different hood without the blower and a race car appearance. Maggie Payton enters the car and plays with it as if she was racing it, until she changes her mind before her attention turns to Herbie. As of 2020, the original Hero Charger from the Fast and the Furious is with a private owner in Europe. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a 2013 action-adventure game developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. It is the 7th main entry in the Grand Theft Auto series, following 2008's Grand Theft Auto 4, and the 15th installment overall. Set within the fictional state of San Andreas, based on Southern California, the single-player story follows 3 protagonists: retired bank robber Michael DeSanta, street gangster Franklin Clinton, and drug dealer and gun runner Trevor Phillips, and their attempts to commit heists while under pressure from corporate government agency and powerful criminals. Players freely roam San Andreas's open-world countryside and fictional city of Los Santos, based on Los Angeles. The game world is navigated on foot and by vehicle, either from a third-person or first-person perspective. Players control the protagonists throughout the single-player and switch among them, both during and outside missions. The story is centered on the heist sequences, and many missions involve shooting and driving gameplay. A wanted system governs the aggression of law enforcement response to players who commit crimes. In Grand Theft Auto Online, The game's online multiplayer mode, up to 30 players engage in a variety of different cooperative and competitive game modes. Shared between many of Rockstar's studios worldwide, the game's development began around the time of Grand Theft Auto 4's release. The developers drew influence from many of their previous projects, such as Red Dead Redemption and Max Payne 3, and designed the game around 3 lead protagonists to innovate on the core structure of its predecessors. Much of the development work constituted the open world's creation, and several team members conducted field research around California to capture footage for the design team. The game's soundtrack features an original score composed by a team of producers who collaborated over several years. Grand Theft Auto V was released in September 2013 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, in November 2014 for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, in April of 2015 for Windows, and in March 2022 for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS. Extensively marketed and widely anticipated, the game broke industry sales records and became the fastest-selling entertainment product in history, earning $800 million in its first day and $1 billion in its first 3 days. It received critical acclaim, with praise directed at its multi-protagonist design, open world, presentation, and gameplay. However, its depiction of violence and women caused controversies. Several gaming publications awarded the game year-end accolades, including Game of the Year awards. In retrospect, it is considered one of the 7th and 8th generation console gaming's most significant titles and among the best video games ever made. It is the second best-selling video game of all time, with 215 million copies shipped, and one of the most financially successful entertainment products of all time, with nearly $10 billion in worldwide revenue. Its successor, Grand Theft Auto 6, is scheduled to be released May 2026. Gameplay. Grand Theft Auto V is an action-adventure game played from either a third-person or first-person perspective. Players complete missions, linear scenarios set with objectives, to progress through the story. Outside of the missions, players may freely roam the open world. Composed of the San Andreas open countryside area and its fictional Blaine County and city of Los Santos, the world is much larger in area than earlier entries in the series. It may be fully explored after the game's beginning without restriction, although story progress unlocks more gameplay content. Players use melee attacks, firearms, and explosives to fight enemies, and may run, jump, swim, or use vehicles to navigate the world. To accommodate the map size, the game introduces vehicle types absent in its predecessor, Grand Theft Auto 4, such as a fixed-wing aircraft. In combat, auto-aim and a cover system may be used to assist against enemies. Should players take damage, their health meter will gradually regenerate to its halfway point. Players respawn at hospitals when their health depletes. If players commit crimes, law enforcement may respond as indicated by the wanted meter in the heads-up display or HUD. Stars displayed on the meter indicate the current wanted level, for example, a minimum 1-star level up to the maximum 5-star level, where police helicopters and SWAT teams start to swarm to lethally dispatch players. Officers will search for the players who leave the wanted vicinity. The meter enters a cooldown mode and eventually recedes when players are hidden from the officer's line of sight that displays on the minimap for a period of time. In single-player mode, players control 3 characters: Michael DeSanta, Trevor Phillips, and Franklin Clinton, criminals whose stories interconnect as they complete missions. Some missions are completed with only 1 character, and others feature 2 or 3. Outside of the missions, players may switch between characters at will by a directional compass on the HUD, although this feature is restricted at certain points during the story. During missions, characters may automatically switch to complete specific objectives. A character's compass avatar will flash red if he is in danger and needs help, and will flash white if he has a strategic advantage. Although players complete missions with protagonists, the more difficult heist missions require aid from AI-controlled accomplices with unique skill sets, like computer hacking and driving. If an accomplice survives a successful heist, they take a cut from the cash reward and may be available for later missions with improvements to their unique skills. Some heists afford multiple strategies. In a hold-up mission, players may either stealthily subdue civilians with an incapacitating agent or conspicuously storm the venue with guns drawn. Each character has a set of 8 skills that represent their ability in specific areas such as shooting and driving. Those skills improve through play. Each character has a skill with expertise by default, such as Trevor's flying skill. The 8th special skill determines proficiency in an ability that is unique to each prospective character. Michael enters bullet time in combat, Franklin slows down time while driving, and Trevor deals twice as much damage to enemies while taking half as much in combat. A meter on each character's HUD depletes when an ability is being used and regenerates when each player performs skillful actions. For example, drifting in vehicles as Franklin or performing headshots as Michael. While free roaming the game world, players may engage in context-specific activities such as scuba diving and base jumping, and visit businesses such as cinemas and strip clubs. Each character has a smartphone for contacting friends, starting activities, and accessing the in-game internet. The internet lets players trade in stocks via a stock market. Players may purchase properties such as garages and businesses, upgrade the weapons and vehicles in each character's arsenal, and customize their appearance by purchasing outfits, haircuts, and tattoos. Plot. In 2004, criminals Michael Townley, Trevor Phillips, and Brad Snyder partake in a failed robbery in Ludendorff, North Yankton, resulting in Michael being presumed dead. 9 years later, Michael lives with his family in the city of Los Santos under the alias Michael DeSanta, having made a secret agreement with Federal Investigation Bureau, the FIB, agent Dave Norton to save Hidden. Across town, gangbanger Franklin Clinton works for a corrupt car salesman and meets Michael while attempting to fraudulently repossess his son's car. The two later become friends. When Michael finds out that his wife is sleeping with her tennis coach, he and Franklin chase the coach to a mansion which Michael damages in anger. The owner, drug lord Martin Madrazo, demands monetary compensation, so Michael returns to a life of crime to obtain the funds, enlisting Franklin as an accomplice. With the help of Michael's old friend Lester Crest, a disabled hacker, they rob a jewelry store and pay off the debt. Meanwhile, Trevor, who lives in squalor in the rural Blaine County, hears of the heist and recognizes Michael's work. Trevor had believed the FIB killed Michael in the Ludendorff heist. Trevor finds Michael and reunites with him, forcing the latter to reluctantly accept the former back into his life. As time goes on, the protagonist's lives spiral out of control. Michael's criminal behavior prompts his family to leave him. When he later becomes a movie producer, he comes into conflict with Devin Weston, a billionaire venture capitalist and corporate raider, who attempts to shut down the studio. Michael thwarts his efforts and inadvertently kills his lawyer, to which Devin vows revenge. Meanwhile, Franklin has to rescue his friend Lamar Davis from rival gangbanger Harold Stretch Joseph, who attempts to kill him multiple times. Concurrently, Trevor tries to consolidate his control over various black markets in Blaine County, waging war against the Lost Outlaw Motorcycle Club, Latino street gangs, rival meth dealers, and private military company Merryweather, and triad kingpin Wei Cheng. Having broken his agreement with Dave by committing robberies again, Michael is coerced by Dave and his superior, Steve Haynes, to perform a series of operations alongside Franklin and Trevor to undermine the International Affairs Agency, IAA. Under Steve's direction and with Lester's help, they attack an armored car carrying funds for the IAA and steal an experimental nerve agent from an IAA lab. As Steve comes under increasing scrutiny, he forces Michael and Franklin to break into the FIB building and erase evidence against him from the servers. Michael takes the opportunity to wipe the data on his own activities, destroying Steve's leverage over him. After reconciling with his family, Michael starts planning his final heist with Trevor, Franklin, and Lester. Raiding the Union Depository's gold bullion reserve. However, Trevor discovers that Brad was not imprisoned as he was led to believe, but killed during the Ludendorff heist and buried in a grave marked for Michael. Deducing the heist was a setup and that he was supposed to be killed in Brad's place, Trevor feels betrayed and leaves Michael for dead during a shootout with Cheng's henchmen. Although Franklin rescues Michael, Trevor's anger toward the latter causes friction within the group and threatens to undermine their plans. Meanwhile, Steve attempts to arrest Michael, but they, alongside Dave, become caught in a Mexican standoff between the FIB, the IAA, and Merryweather. Steve escapes while Michael and Dave are saved by Trevor, who believes he is the only one that has the right to kill Michael. The Union Depository heist is successful, but Franklin is afterwards approached by Steve and Dave, who contend that Trevor is a liability and Devin still seeking vengeance on Michael. Franklin has 3 options: kill Trevor, kill Michael, or attempt to save them both in a suicide mission. Should Franklin choose to kill either Michael or Trevor, his relationship with the other ceases, and he returns to his old life. Otherwise, the trio, aided by Lamar and Lester, withstand an onslaught from the FIB and Merryweather before going to kill Cheng, Stretch, Steve, and Devin. Michael and Trevor reconcile, and the 3 protagonists cease working together but remain friends. Development. Rockstar North began to develop Grand Theft Auto V in 2008, around Grand Theft Auto 4's release. The development team totaled more than 1,000 people, including Rockstar North's core team and staff from parent company Rockstar Games' studios around the world. The proprietary Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, Rage, was overhauled for the game to improve its draw distance and rendering capabilities. The Euphoria and Bullet software handle additional animation and rendering tasks. Having become familiar with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 hardware over time, Rockstar found that they were able to push the console's graphical capabilities further than in previous games. Analyst estimations place the game's combined development and marketing budget at more than $265 million, which would make it the most expensive game ever made at the time. The open world was modeled on Southern California and Los Angeles, and its design and in-game render constituted much of the game's early work. Key members of the Game World production team took field research trips throughout the region and documented their research with photo and video footage. Google Maps projections of Los Angeles were used by the team to help design Los Santos's road networks. To reflect and reproduce Los Angeles's demographic spread, the developers studied census data and watched documentaries about the city. The team considered creating the open world the most technically demanding aspect of the game's production. A fundamental design goal from the onset was to innovate on the series' core structure by giving players more control of 3 lead protagonists instead of 1. The idea was first raised during Grand Theft Auto San Andreas' development, but contemporaneous software restrictions made it infeasible. Having developed 2 Grand Theft Auto 4 episodic expansion packs featuring new protagonists in 2009, the team wanted to base Grand Theft Auto 5 around 3 simultaneously controlled protagonists. The team viewed it as a spiritual successor to many of their previous games, and designed it to improve upon their gameplay mechanics. They sought to improve the action gameplay by refining the shooting mechanics and cover system, and reworking the driving mechanics to correct Grand Theft Auto 4's awkward vehicle controls. After an audition process, Ned Luke, Sean Fontano, and Steve Ogg were selected to portray Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, respectively. Their performances were mostly recorded using motion capture technology, but dialogue for scenes with characters seated in vehicles was recorded in studios instead. The game's original score was composed by a team of producers who collaborated over several years. Licensed music provided by an in-game radio station is also used. The team licensed more than 241 tracks, shared between 15 radio stations, with an additional 2 stations providing talk radio. Some of the tracks were written specifically for the game, such as rapper and producer Flying Lotus's original work composed for the Fly Low FM radio station he hosts. Release. Rockstar Games announced the game on the 25th October of 2011. They released its debut trailer 1 week later, with an official press release acknowledging its setting. Journalists noted the widespread industry anticipation ignited by the announcement, which they owed to the series' cultural significance. The game missed its original projected Q2 2013 release date, pushed back to the 17th September to allow for further polishing. To spur pre-order game sales, Rockstar collaborated with several retail outlets to make special editions with extra in-game features. They ran a viral marketing strategy with websites for fictional religious cult, the Epsilon program, that offered users the chance to feature in the game as members of the cult. A re-release of the game was announced for PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One at E3 2014. This enhanced version features an increased draw distance, finer texture details, denser traffic, upgraded weather effects, and new wildlife and vegetation. It includes a new on-foot first-person view, which It includes a new on-foot first-person view option, which required the development team to overhaul the animation system to accommodate first-person gameplay. The PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions released on November 18, 2014. The PC version, initially scheduled for simultaneous release with the console versions, was delayed until April 14th of 2015. According to Rockstar, it required extra development time for polish. The PC version is capable of 60 frames per second gameplay at 4K resolution, and the Rockstar editor lets players capture and edit gameplay videos. Controversies. The mission by the book, which requires players to use torture equipment in a hostage interrogation, unsettled reviewers. They noted its political commentary on the use of torture by the United States government, but found the sequence to be in poor taste. GameSpot felt that placing the torture scene in context with analogous monologue by Trevor created a hypocrisy in the mission's function as a commentary device. Eurogamer felt that the close-up camera and quick-time events accentuated the sequence's impact beyond the violence depicted in the previous Grand Theft Auto games, and considered the sequence lacking enough context to justify the violence. The mission received criticism from politicians and anti-torture charity groups. Independent journalist Tom Chick defended the torture sequence and wrote that unlike Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's No Russian mission for the 2012 film Zero Dark 30, the underlying political commentary on the torture in by the book necessitated the violent content. The torture gameplay was cut from Japanese release. Several reviewers found the game's portrayal of women misogynistic. VG 24/7 wrote the female characters were either to be rescued, shouted at, effed, to be seen effing, put up with, killed, or heard prattling away like dullards on their mobile phones or shopping. Edge noted the game treats its all-male lead characters in a similar vein through their stereotyped tendencies toward violence. After GameSpot's Carolyn Pettit claimed the game was misogynistic, her review was met with backlash as users responded with 20,000 largely negative comments on the webpage and a Change.org petition for her firing. Many journalists defended her right to an opinion and lamented the game's community defensiveness toward criticism. Australian department stores Target and Kmart pulled the game from their stores in December 2014 after a Change.org petition against depictions of violence towards women in the game amassed over 40,000 signatures. Take-Two Interactive Chief Operating Officer Strauss Zelnick publicly expressed the company's disappointment that the game had been pulled from the retailers, and affirming that he stands behind our products, the people who created them, and the consumers who play them. IGN called the Change.org petition misinformed, stating that its complaints about incentives for committing sexual violence in the game are untrue. Sexual violence in the games is forbidden by the Australian Classification Board, meaning the game would have been refused a classification. Kotaku said that the depiction of women is inherently problematic and that Target were within their rights to refuse to stock the game and were obligated to respond to the petition's wide support. Pettit and online anti-harassment activist Ben Culliver criticized the game's depiction of transgender characters as sex workers with primarily muscular bodies, describing it as a harmful transphobic stereotype. Culliver wrote that the representation does not reflect the complex, nuanced structures that often regulate transgender people's lives. The April 2022 re-release on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS removed the content from all portions of the game except for director mode, meaning their models were accessible but without dialogue options. Some journalists recognize the removal may have been prompted by an open letter written by a LGBTQ+ advocacy group out making games, who requested the removal after reading Petit's article. The group praised Rockstar's decision to remove the content. In October 2013, rapper Daz Dillinger issued a cease and desist letter to Rockstar Games and Take-Two Interactive for allegedly using 2 of his songs without authorization. In February 2014, television personality Karen Gravano and the reality television program Modwives filed lawsuit against Rockstar Games in allegation that a character in the game is based on her likeness and story and was depicted without her consent. Rockstar filed to dismiss Gravano's lawsuit in April and stated that the allegations are foreclosed by the First Amendment. In July, actress Lindsay Lohan also filed a lawsuit claiming elements in the game, including Lacey Jonas' character, were influenced by her image, voice, and clothing line without permission. Rockstar responded in court papers that sought a dismissal of the case, saying that the case was frivolous and filed for publicity purposes. In 2016, both lawsuits were dismissed. I chose to play GTA 5 because the actual licensed Fast and Furious games are reportedly terrible, and the criminal activity plus ability to soup up and collect cars gives GTA 5 a similar feel to the Fast franchise films. I watched the first 5 films as they came out in theaters, but the first 2 films hold the top spots in my heart. As a Detroiter, I have a deep appreciation for automotives. Build time today, 5 hours, 7 minutes, 10 seconds, which means that you could watch all of The Fast and The Furious at 1 hour, 46 minutes, Too Fast, Too Furious at 1 hour, 47 minutes, and up to the last 10 minutes of The Fast, The Furious, Tokyo Drift at 1 hour, 44 minutes. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.